Yes, we can see.
Okay, good.
Yep. Yes.
Let's see if we can get it started. Oh, my new favorite jam, sorry. All right, so we're in this world of Open Door, OfferPad, Redfin, all these different companies that started several years ago offering cash offers, Homeward, all these different companies that have given us lots of tools to offer our sellers and buyers and things of that nature to be a cash buyer by them buying their home and giving them the equity out of it. And one technique or tool that we do have that's exclusive to Heart of Atlanta is iFinder. Many of you have heard about iFinder, and if you haven't, I'll show you where you can get certified. And some of you may have had great experiences, no experiences, or you just feel like all the offers are low. I was taught years and years ago, the insult is not a low offer, the insult is no offer. So when I talk to a seller myself and they say, oh, well, I don't want to see any low offers. And I said, well, that's why we call it counteroffer. And what is the insult is you not receiving any offers when people just come through your home or call you and then don't show up if you're for sale by owner. That's the insult. That's what you should be upset about, not someone bringing you an offer that you possibly could counter and make it work. So getting cash offers is not a guarantee, it's a tool. So if you don't have this tool in your toolbox, you can't compete with an Open Door offer pad because you better believe your clients have already gotten online to just test the waters to see what they could get. So is there anyone on here who has ever tried any of those services? Yes, no? So I can get a gauge as to how deep I need to go or not go.
Nope, never have.
Never have. So when you saw the title of today's MOFIR, if you broker chat today, when you saw MOFIR, did you think I was saying bad words or you've heard of MOFIR before?
Heard of MOFIR.
Okay,
Didn't
good.
think it was a bad word.
Okay, good. So MOFIR is indicated in our famous red book, Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And if you went to Mega Camp or Family Reunion, you probably also purchased, or you may have, or you are going to in the future, purchase the Playbook Volume 2, which has a really good section about MOFIR. So let's get into what MOFIR is all about. The reason I wanted to go over this, and I mentioned iFinder, because iFinder is exclusive to us on top of the other things that are open to everyone else. But I get questions as a broker as to how to structure your offer when you're working with someone who may be off market. And so that's why the forms we're going over today will explain the structure of how to put that together. So MOFIRs are strategic ways to attract and engage your potential prospects by making an immediate offer. So MOFIR stands for making offers that will give this seller an instant response. Okay. I've already said that Heart of Atlanta has a tool to do this. It's called iFinder, and it can be a market message or a response strategy. So if you're prospecting in a neighborhood, let's say farming, and you want to be that go-to person in that neighborhood, then this might be a tool to use to say, hey, I can get you a cash offer. We are a prospecting team, and I have someone who prospects with me every day for 4 hours. And at the end of the day, I have a list from her that says, these are the following people that are interested in a cash offer. They're not interested in listing yet or at all. They just want to know about your cash offer. So what that does, it will at least get a foot in the door. At least it will give you an opportunity to say, I can't guarantee I'm going to get you a cash offer that you will accept. However, let's start there. And then if that doesn't work, let's talk traditional. That was a script if anyone caught on to that, and it works. Sometimes you will have people that'll say, oh yeah, I've tried that, the offers were too low, so on. Those are all called objections, and we've all learned how to talk to people when they give us objections. Okay, any questions about that so far?
Nope.
Several ways to create your MOFIRs. Today, we will discuss those cash offer type or off market. So I mentioned the Millionaire Real Estate Playbook. If you have this book or if you plan to purchase it, it's $30. And you can go on to Keller Inc. and buy it. Just go to Keller Inc. KELLERINK.com and go under books and you'll find this. They sold out at Mega Camp when I went, and so I had to order mine. And I've used those to hand out to potential recruits or people that I co-op with, anybody I have coffee with, and they are having real estate pain. I offer an MREA book, and now I have this book to offer. I just made my second order of books, and people are loving it. It's written in a way almost like a children's book, is how I could say it, for adults. Big pages, very few pages, lots of pictures and QR codes. So if you are really curious about this, I really love it. I've got all the books that Gary has written for our company, and I like this one the best so far. Wow. Okay. And if you do have this book, it's on, what we're talking about today is on page 58. Okay. So how do I get certified? I want to talk about this first. I'm not going to go into iFinder because this is not an iFinder class, but I am the person in Heart of Atlanta. If you ever have questions, you can always go to your team leader or your productivity coach, but I was one of the first to get certified in it. And the powers that be are Keller Williams agents that started this. And I'm kind of your ambassador for their word, not mine. If you should run into any problem or questions, I can help you. Or you just go directly to Dixie or Rosemary, who will be the people you will contact when you have these offers. So if you want to get certified, you're just going to go to info@ifinders.com. Let them know you want to get certified. That also, there's a $150 fee to that, a one-time fee, and your MCA will charge you for that. So if you haven't already done that, I would do it. It's just another tool in your toolbox that when you're ready to submit to the portal. There are several masterminds once you join the Facebook group. And I don't think you can join it unless you're certified. Don't quote me on that, but I think you have to be certified for them to let you in. So they do several masterminds throughout the year. And then also you get all the marketing materials. They give you postcards and flyers and on and on and on. I have a separate cash offer website that I use this for, and we send some of our prospects to that site, or we submit the offer for them. It just depends on what their comfort level is. All right. So let's get into it. What I am finding is that people are doing a lot more off market. And I just wanted to also touch base on FMLS and Georgia MLS. When I am working with a potential seller, I always start with cash offer before I list it. So the reason I do that is because if I can get them a cash offer that's satisfactory, we don't have to go through all the trouble of listing it, open houses, people walking through, so on and so forth. Just like the commercials, just like some of the people that tout that you don't have to clean up your house and so on and so forth. So FMLS says that when you have an exclusive listing, which is what we get, you have to have that listing in FMLS and Georgia MLS, because we're members of both, in that system within 48 hours. So what would be the strategy of doing this? I heard a little moan. When you are not in there in 48 hours, you are out of compliance. Okay. And so when a seller signs your document, you have 48 hours to put that listing in. All right. Whether it's your transaction person that's helping you, or you do it yourself, or your assistant. So the first thing you want to do is say to the seller, we're going to have to, most people that want to make a cash offer, if any of you are familiar with doing cash offers with, say, an investor, they're not interested in your listed properties. They don't go to MLS or FMLS looking for properties. They want to find off market. So who should they be finding off market from? Us. We prospect, whether it's through postcards, social media, calling, and we know about it before it even hits the market. So that's an opportunity to sell it off market. All right. Now, if your seller says, okay, I agree to show it off market first, and then we can go traditional, you would be signing two groups of documents so that the exclusive would happen in the future. That's how you would handle that. Okay. And we'll talk more in that. So let's talk about an off-market property and using iFinder. Once you become certified, iFinder they have like a 20-minute video that you would watch to get certified, or sometimes they've come to Atlanta and they do a live training, and that live training is half the price, but they haven't been to Atlanta in a while, so it'll still be $150, but if they do come to Atlanta, a lot of times it's about $75. And they haven't been in a while, so it's probably time for them to come and visit us. But you will get the document, the authorization to seek offers. You want to make sure that you have the right version. I just sent them three of them last week, and I had the wrong version because I hadn't updated to the July version. So they sent that back to me. The seller is charged 1%, okay, to participate in this receipt of cash offers. In the portal of iFinder, there are several investors. It's not one investor. There's several. There's hedge funds and also agents. So if you are aspiring to be an investor yourself, you can also submit yourself as an investor as well as an agent to send properties in. I won't get into that. That's part of the training. That's not what this particular broker chat is about today. So this is what the form looks like. You would need to have this form for iFinder, and basically you just fill out the top part with the address. You go over this information for them to read, which also says, we highly recommend that you go traditional if you don't like our offers. There's a 1% fee that's charged at closing on the settlement statement. And then it's a 2-pager. The second page has the signature areas. Okay. Any questions about that? All right. So let's get into the Georgia forms. So the Georgia forms, we have what's called a form called authorization to show an unlisted property. So this would apply to any type of unlisted property. You could be prospecting an expired that's off the market. You could be prospecting a for sale by owner, and or you could be prospecting a neighborhood. And someone says to you, yes, bring your buyer. Now, you could have multiple buyers. In this exercise, you could have, Mr. Investor, Miss Investor, and iFinder. So you would pull this form, and in this form, you will notice the highlighted area. You're going to negotiate with the seller what they plan to pay you. Because as we all know, we must always have a written agreement before doing anything with anyone. All right. So this is your written agreement, which does not create an exclusive client agreement with the seller. That would be an exclusive right to sell. This is giving you authorization to show the property to the following people, which you would just highlight in the section here where it says, who are the buyers that you're going to bring to the home? So I might put Mr. Investor, I might put Acme LLC, I might put iFinder, I put all the people that I plan to tell or show this particular property to so that I'm covered. And then the seller agrees to pay whatever it is you negotiate. Lots of strategies here. You might say, well, my business fee is 3%. And the seller might say, well, I don't want to pay this 1%. You could also say, well, my fee is 4%, and then you pay it for them or something like that. You have to determine how to work that in, but the seller would pay 1% on their side as well as whatever you negotiate with them. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay, so you're going to fill in the commission. You'll also fill in right here under number 4, your prospective buyers or tenants, because this also works for rental property, showing someone's house for rent as well. You may have someone to buy it. You may have someone who might want to rent it, but this is the form that you will use, and it's under authorization to show unlisted property. Okay. Now, we have to have both of these forms because we're in Georgia. We would have the iFinder form, or any other company, Open Door Offer Pad, if they have a form. I haven't done an Open Door Offer Pad in quite some time, but sometimes there are companies that are going to give you some type of authorization that's specifically for their company. That's fine, but you must have this one for your broker. Okay. So some additional forms you might need. I don't know why we're having so much trouble with this one, but the affiliate business disclosure, we're now calling it an exhibit that needs to be included on all of your transactions, including the off market. Sometimes the home is built before 1978, so you'll need the lead paint exhibit. If you do not include the lead paint exhibit, and we were ever monitored or asked to show a particular file built before 1978 that could be picked random by the EPA if they were to audit us, then you would be charged a fine of $16,000. Okay. Now, we would probably also, and for each incident, by the way, they don't just come in and say, oh, we found 12, we're fining you $16,000. No, they fine you $16,000 times 12.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So don't eat, just 16,000 is bad enough. Then multiply it however many infractions we have. We don't want that to happen. So make sure that if it's built before 1978, that's any transaction, listed or unlisted, that form is included and properly executed. And it's supposed to be done before you do your offer. It's supposed to be reviewed, just like the affiliate business disclosure is supposed to be done before. The lead paint is supposed to be done before you go binding or you start writing offers. That is why if we have listing agents on this call today or at all, you want to go ahead and have those forms filled out when you list a property and then upload them on FMLS and Georgia MLS under documents so that a buyer who's going to write an offer on your property can download those forms early. Now, so you've heard that I've been doing this for 28 years. Obviously, when I started, there was no internet. It was just starting because the internet's only about 22-ish years. And we would go in and look at a home and get back in the car and call on our bag phones and ask the agent, if anybody remembers what a bag phone is, and say, hey, this is Deborah with Keller Williams. I'm heading back to the office to make an offer on your property. Can you wait for it? Fax over the forms that I need because I'm going to be making an offer. Well, we don't have to do those archaic things now because we have sources to just upload things, and that way a person can just download it and keep moving and get you those offers as quickly as possible. Anybody on this call remember anything I just talked about? Bag phone?
oh yeah.
We're aging ourselves. And then you have the latent defect. So
I have them all.
yeah,
Phone, back phone, and a fax.
I probably have them in one of my graveyards in the attic. You know, when you keep that stuff, you wonder, how do I get rid of any of this stuff? So I think now they're antiques. But anyway, so you also want to let the seller know that sometimes we do a seller's disclosure. Now, many people think when you see the term as is, that you don't have to give anything. We have a special stip, and I forgot to put that on this slide, but we have a special stip that indicates whether the seller is going to provide anything at all. But if you were to go on an appointment and you're going to do this off-market type situation or even a listed situation, then if the seller says to you, well, you know, I'm an investor, I never lived in that home, they're not immune to latent defects. Okay. And so we have two seller's disclosure. We have the full seller's disclosure, which is a few pages. And then we have a 2-pager, which is for seller defects. And it's only 2 pages. I highly recommend that you use this form or take this form. But if they refuse to fill out either one of them, then you would use the special stip. I don't know the number. I should have gotten that number. If anybody on here knows it, because I've given this before, then you'll add that to the special steps on the listing agreement or the authorization agreement, that they're not going to provide a disclosure. And then when you when you're talking to the buyer, or if there's a co-op agent that has a buyer to show your unlisted, then you would let them know we won't be providing any kind of disclosure. Okay. And if you're a buyer's agent, you may send over a disclosure and say, hey, can you just go ahead and fill this out to the best of your knowledge for my buyer? There's nothing wrong with either one of those. You will run into many properties that are renovated that won't fill out a seller's disclosure. If you work with any kind of relocation companies, they won't fill one out. If you work with any kind of REO property, which is real estate owned or bank owned properties, they won't fill out one, or they may have their own. So if someone pushes back, especially from corporate type entities, that they won't do it, just don't wig out about it. Just use the special step that you did ask. They have told you they're not going to sign that particular form, especially if they're from another state. They're not going to do it. Okay. And your compliance department will know that, or should know that. Any questions about any of those forms? Is anybody hearing something for the first time? I heard a couple of, ohs. No? Yes? You have to talk to me. Otherwise, I'm just talking to a screen by myself.
I hear something in the beginning of the slides about the time, the specific time. So did you mean the commitment time or the listing agreement time has to be 48 hours?
So it says here that a member must be listed with FMLS and entered into FMLS database within 48 hours after the listing is signed by the owner.
So what about when we are preparing the house to be listed? We still painting, we still cleaning out, it's not ready to be on FMLS.
That's called coming soon.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So let's say you and I'm the seller, you're my potential listing agent. I say yes to you. Today is the 23rd, but we need to clean up and stage and so on and so forth. I would sign on the 23rd, but I would be coming soon, October 1st.
Okay, I just don't
So
like.
then have you ever entered the listing before?
Yes, all the time. But when I don't have photos, I don't like even to put it as a
I
comment
don't
soon.
either. You shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's not, because the internet grabs and never gives back. So you don't want to put anything terrible out there. So
Right.
that's why we have the option of active. So what this is saying, 48 hours, it would go active. But if you know you have to do some work before that, don't you want to be hired so someone else doesn't scoop in and say, well, wait a minute, I'll do it for less. And then your seller
Yeah.
says, you see where I'm going with that? And then
Yeah.
they end up signing with someone else while you're busy trying to get them ready. So what you want to do is they would sign today, and we're not going over listing agreements, but I know that every Monday from 1 to 2, Angie and Tom do a contract class, and I'm sure they go over that listing agreement. On that listing agreement, it will say the commencement date,
Mm-hmm.
the marketing date, and the coming soon date. So in your particular example, you would fill out all of those dates. We
Yeah.
signed it today, but we're not going to the public until October 1st. So that way you have it signed. Then you don't have to have it in there at that point. You would have it in there by the coming soon date.
Yes.
So when you go into MLS and FMLS and you're entering it, you'll notice you have two options, active or coming soon. You click coming soon, and then the system will ask you, what's the coming soon date? October 1st. That's all you have to do. Then what happens, October 1st, it automatically turns into active.
Got you.
If you have to change that, move it up or move it back, then whoever your broker is in the office is the only one, or whoever your compliance person would be the only one that can go in there and change it.
Yes, thank you so much.
Did anybody else have a question about that? Did anybody just hear an aha? They don't want to admit it while we're being taped. I got it. All right, let's get back to the screen we were on.
Hello, I have an aha.
Okay.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great.
So I heard something new. You said that on the listing agreement that it has a place to indicate coming soon. I don't recall that.
No, I
I
didn't say
do.
that.
Oh
No.
no. Okay, I heard you wrong
Dates.
then. I'm sorry.
Yes. So on your listing agreement, I wish I'd put it on here, but I didn't.
Okay.
You know how you have your beginning and ending date for your listing?
Yes.
Then right below that, you will have your date of marketing,
Got
and
it.
will come to market to the public. We call
Got it.
that coming soon.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So, as far as the rule is concerned, so I take that listing, we date it today. We know it's not coming soon until, let's say, 7 days later,
Mm-hmm.
because we got to get the house ready.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying is, as far as FMLS is concerned, is do I need to go ahead and put it? Am I required to go ahead and put it in the FMLS and stipulate that it's coming soon on that date,
Correct.
or
Because the
okay,
signed agreement was done today
okay. So within 48 hours, I need to put it in the MLS as a coming soon.
as an active or coming soon. Correct.
Okay.
Because what was happening before, people would get it signed and then never put it in FMLS because they got an offer, 7 days later while they're
Right.
working on it. And that's not correct.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now you're letting FMLS know, and your broker, that you have a signed listing agreement. It's just not coming to market until October 1st, which you would put in the FMLS and Georgia MLS system.
Got it. Okay.
And so what happens is, I'll go on one more step on the coming soon. The only eyeballs that can see your new listing are agents. That's a good thing.
Right.
Because if I'm
Right.
searching and I see coming soon, I may reach out to you and say, hey, I'm going to be interested in seeing that on the 1st. How soon can I get in? You
Right.
Actually,
cannot show the property and you cannot bind while you're coming soon. No one can come into that house and look at it. I
actually,
know, I know
they go
that
to
there are people
public.
that break that rule.
They go to
Yes, go ahead.
Zillow.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Yeah.
Because when it's coming soon, it's go to public. It's go to Zillow. I have buyers send me several houses
That is
on coming
true.
soon. They found it on Zillow and we got under contract. We closed. But we saw it while it's coming soon. But this coming soon on FMLS, I wish they are only for agents. That make more sense. But they go to Zillow.
That's right.
They go to public
It's
marketing.
not supposed to. That's the first time I've heard that.
Yes,
No,
it's
yeah, it definitely does. I agree. It goes and the ticker starts as well, which is why lots of times I shy away from, let me just say I've shied away from entering the listing on the MLS because I don't want the ticker to start if the house is not
It's
ready.
not,
And I
it's
don't
not
want all these
supposed.
people to
so
see it either.
we have option here to select not to go, but many agents they choose the other option to select it to go to public websites. But there is an option, but I saw so many coming soon on
Okay.
realtor.com and Zillow and
Yeah,
everything.
it's not supposed. Well, let me say this to you. I'm going to call and check on that first of
Yeah.
all, because it's not, when they created coming soon for us, if you go to
Mhm.
FMLS and look at the training videos on coming soon, they specifically say it doesn't go to the public.
Huh.
So I will check on that and find out how is it going to Zillow, because once we put it in, we have no control over that. They sell our information and it goes out to the internet, never to be seen again or
Yeah.
removed again
And
unless
I believe it's also go to our clients on the auto search.
it can, it
Yeah.
can. You just can't show. You just can't show them the
I
property. You
think
can't take
we
them inside.
can. I think we can show if we ask permission.
No. I'm Look,
Okay. Okay, I'm not unsure, but
you're doing something you're not supposed to do, and that's what happens in our industry. He did it, she did it, it's doing it, and so everyone's doing it incorrectly. Also known as the NAR settlement lawsuit.
yes.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. That's what this call is for. But I am going to check as to why it's syndicating, because coming soon is supposed to only be available to us. Like you just said, that makes sense. We can call, and going under contract while it's coming soon, that's a no-no. FMLS and Georgia MLS, they're a marketing firm. That's why they have the little disclaimer at the bottom. We know nothing about nothing. Information is, uh, deemed not whatever it says, guaranteed or something like that. At the end of the day, they are a marketing firm selling our information to other search engines. So at the end of the day, we're not supposed to, as realtors, show that property to anyone. We can talk about it. We can let you know it's coming soon. That's why you see flyers in your email box. Nothing wrong with that. But no one is supposed to go. And this little FMLS policy that I was just showing you, if you go into FMLS and Georgia MLS and read their policy under coming soon, it will tell you that. So I do know, that's why I was prefacing by saying, I know on the streets, different things happen. Also known as the NAR lawsuit. More to come as people do things they're not supposed to. So I would just be careful with that, going under contract while you're coming soon. Think about it, you guys. You didn't allow that property to hit the open market for the seller to get multiple offers or higher offers or a better offer. I'm not a fan of coming soon because of that, because it's abused. So just be very careful with that. But if that wasn't the case, then there would be no reason to have coming soon. They also have, I've never used this one, but there's another option is registered listing, where you would put it in, you would click registered, which means it's in the system, no one would see it. Agents wouldn't see it, no one would see it, and only a broker can change it if you made a mistake.
And that's a great option for us until we're waiting until the photo, until the house ready.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never used that one, but that is what that's for too. And those little videos are on YouTube. If you type in FMLS YouTube, you'll see it.
Okay, so it still exists, this option of register?
I think so. I have not read anything or heard anything that they've taken it away, but when I call about this coming soon, I'm going to check with them. I've never used the register. I remember when it came out, but I've never used it.
Wonderful, but it's fulfilled the requirement of the 48 hours.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Good conversation. Thank you, guys. And thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to check into that.
Thank you.
Right. Compensation. All right. So you'll negotiate your
Deborah,
compensation.
Sorry,
go ahead.
you had Sarah with her hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Sarah. Sorry, I missed you. Go ahead.
Just mowing, plowing right through there, girl. You got an agenda and you got to check it all off.
Well, I got an hour and I want to make sure I get you guys out of here in time because I think they need the Zoom link right after us.
So I'm confused about forms. So a seller called me and said, I don't want to list my property on MLS. I want you to find me a buyer. I have a buyer that's been looking for investment property. So I called that buyer and he's like, oh, I'm interested. I have no, what form do I use? Do I sign both the non-exclusive seller and the non-exclusive buyer for each? I mean, I don't know how to do this. I'm confused. I'm just confused. In the past, I would have just done the non-exclusive buyer broker agreement, and then I would have just done it that way. But I don't know if that's the right thing anymore.
It's always been the right thing. So you're not confused. You're right on track. You can use the customer agreement or you can use the non-exclusive agreement. Our new
so with the seller, I would use just use a customer agreement with him.
Now, listen to me. Look at the form on the screen.
Yep.
That seller is unlisted, correct?
Right.
This is the form you use for the seller.
This
is the only form you really need to use.
Yep.
And then the buyer, because you are discussing agency, because by law, we are supposed to explain agency to whomever we're talking to. And you can choose to use the non-exclusive. So when we normally have a buyer we're working with, we use the exclusive. A non-exclusive, if you read that form, says that person can work with anyone. If I call them, they can work with me, and on and on and on.
Well, I have an exclusive buyer broker with him because he's looking for a house.
So that's a client. That's not a customer.
Right. So I can still use that buyer broker exclusive with this off-market property. I just need to get the authorization to show unlisted property done.
Correct.
Okay,
because you want to protect your buyer. And then in this section here, you would put your buyer's name.
Right.
Or their initials or whatever you feel comfortable putting. So that seller says, oh, okay, I'm giving you authorization to bring Deborah next Saturday to look at 123 Main Street. And for that, I will pay you XYZ.
Yep. So I sold this seller that property and he called me and was like, I think I want to sell it now, but I don't want to put it on the MLS and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so all right. Thank you. That's what I need to know.
Now,
Deborah.
let me address something before we leave that. Hold on one second. When someone says they don't want to list, they're really this right here, authorization to show an unlisted property. And you put a beginning date and an end date. That could be 2 days, 10 days, 30 days. But at the end of the day, if you use this form, they cannot go into FMLS. Okay. Then let me point that out. Let me show that to you real quick because I have it up here as well. Let me put my peepers on, people. I'm getting younger. Where was that slide? My assistant did this slide stuff and it's, where did I, oh, I went too far, didn't I? There are exceptions. See this right here? Any property not listed under an exclusive right to sell. That's what we typically get with the principal member, which would be your brokerage. That's the exception. It cannot be listed with FMLS. 3.5 is the rule. So 3.1 is the rule. It's got to be in there within 48 hours and cannot, and within 1 business day, marketing the property to the public, unless we say coming soon or registered. So the reason why this is confusing sometimes is because when I started in the business, you had to go to FMLS and Georgia MLS training before getting your super box or anything so that you would understand the rules. Now you get licensed, they hand everything to you. And so it's kind of the wild, wild west because no one's reading this, just me. Okay. Then 3.5 says that these are the parts that if it's not an exclusive right to sell, it cannot be an FMLS. And this is abused also because people will get an authorization to show an unlisted property and then put it into FMLS, which is incorrect.
What is number D? Anytime sharing a property?
A time sharing property is like going to Disney World and you buy part of a condo. You can't list a timeshare in FMLS and Georgia MLS.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I had a train of thought of what Sarah was saying about not wanting to list if someone says they don't want to list, which when we prospect, that's what we get. We're not ready to list or we don't want to list. Great. Let me get you a cash offer. And we go through the paperwork of authorization to show. I may have a buyer that I signed a week ago with an exclusive, or I may have another investor that I've got a customer agreement with, or a non-exclusive, whichever one you prefer to use. I use the customer agreement, and then I show the property. We write an offer. It never hit the market, and we close. Majority of my deals are like that. Okay? Just because I have a huge database of investors and a huge database of properties that people send to me. They're not always great because the numbers don't always work out. But if you are going to do that kind of business, then this is what I'm explaining to you today is how you would properly use the documents. Sarah, are you still confused or did I clear it up? Sarah fell out her chair.
No, I'm over here going thumbs up. I
Okay.
just go off. I wasn't going off audio.
Okay. And then I heard someone else that was chiming in when Sarah was talking. Did you want to ask your question now?
Hey, Deborah, it's Willie Nelson. How are you?
Hey, Willie the Nelson.
The Nelson. Yeah, I just to clarify Sarah's scenario, in that situation, that's a dual agency role because if you're not signing exclusive with the authorization. Never mind. I just talked it out. Thank you.
So because anyone else might be confused, Everyone gets all bent out of shape about the word dual. Dual is when you have two clients. Seller is a client, buyer is a client. And you must get permission from both sides to represent them both. Tom is not a fan of that, okay? Tom is our qualifying broker. But it's not illegal. You have some people, oh, it's illegal. But most people believe you can't serve two masters, all right? What the rule is, you must get permission, all right? And then once you get permission, because someone might say to you, you know what, Willie, I want you to represent me. I don't want you to represent the seller. I don't trust that. Great. I'm going to go to my broker, or I'm going to go to a colleague to represent the seller, and I'll represent you, or vice versa, or however that goes. Because it's not a problem until it is a problem. When someone calls and says, I don't think Willie had my best interest at heart, because he had both sides. In the example I'm giving you today, the authorization and the buyer you're bringing to that property, are you not still getting the compensation from both sides? Yes. Or for both sides, or whatever it is you negotiate. So that's not dual agency. Dual agency is when you have two clients. You've got two exclusive signed agreements. That would make it dual. Okay? Yay. Thank you, Willie, for bringing that up, because that's another question that happens all the time. And most of the time people are talking to me about their customer and not their client. All right. And so we already talked about your compensation. So in this scenario, you will negotiate that with the seller. And then once seller says, yeah, I'll pay you 4% or whatever the number is, then of course you'll write your offer, you'll fill out your instructions to the closing attorney as to who's paying, and that's the end of that. There's less paperwork in the off market than there is when we're doing a full-on listed property, because you just need the authorization, who are you representing, and the offer, and then all the supporting documents, depending on if it was built before 1978 and so on. All right, so we want to make sure that we have a written agreement. That's always been, and now it's stressed more since August 17th. So for those of you that are newer, you don't know any better. For those of us that have been around for a while doing things a certain way, not me, but others, you want to always have something written. Why would you work with anybody and you don't have an agreement? Because those are the ones that call and make a complaint and say, oh, I don't think XYZ had my best interest. And then as a broker, I'm looking in command to see how are we representing this person. So when people, the agents in the Midtown office call me, they know my catchphrase is, what does the contract say? And also, who do we represent? I say we because the brokerage represents whoever you are bringing to me, and you are the licensee of that person. Okay. So I'll always say, what does the contract say? Or what does your contract say? And who do we represent? That way I know as a broker, you know, what question you're asking and how I will be answering that based on, are we representing them as a buyer, a seller, a client, or customer? All right. Consent. If you are not proficient in explaining the agencies, I suggest you use CB01, which is the consumer brochure, the ABCs of agency. It has all the agencies on it that we have here in the state of Georgia. It should be in your packet. It should be part of your, maybe your website, or you have a landing page or whatever it is, but it's a good practice. So when I am writing an offer and I put my consumer brochures in DocuSign, along with their agreement, whether it's going to be a customer or an exclusive or whatever, then I fill that out and I add all the brochures as one zip file. Whether they need all of them or not is not my business. My business is that I've presented all of the consumer brochures for them to consume however they choose. They may never even open them up and look at it, but I do highlight the ABCs of agency before working with anyone. And I usually explain whether they want to be a customer or a client. Most of the people I talk to want to be a client. Obviously, a seller who lists with you would be a client. You probably talk more about it when you're with buyers. because they don't always understand. They don't really care sometimes either. They're just like, I just need somebody to show me the house, but you still are obligated as a realtor to explain agency. That is a law, always has been. Has nothing to do with the NAR settlement. It was always a law. The NAR lawsuit happened because this wasn't happening on a regular basis, and explaining and compensations and so on and so forth. So I think we've talked the NAR settlement to death. And so when I take a temperature test in the office, how's everybody feeling? I get no questions. So that's telling me that you guys are starting to kind of get used to it. You understand it. And if you don't, please, please, please speak up, because we don't want anyone to get caught in a situation where they don't know what they're talking about, or someone, they don't know how to explain something to someone. Is anybody having any issues with it since August 17th? No, I'm seeing heads shake. No, good. Any pushback on compensation?
Not really.
Yeah, it's almost like when I'll say 20 years ago, where we were told we'd be replaced by the internet. We're still standing. I think we panicked more than the consumer did. What the consumer didn't understand was a lot of misinformation given by the media of what this August 17th meant. I still hear commercials on my radio sometimes like, no, that's not correct, but okay. So you run into that every now and then when someone says, what? I thought I didn't have to pay you. I'm like, no, that's not what that meant. You have a few minutes, I could explain it. And then they're fine. They don't, I don't think people really want to not use us. I think they're exhausted when they haven't sold their home. I spoke to someone Saturday, and I couldn't convince her, to work with me on a cash offer, because she said, I tried that already. I had 3 agents. So I would have been agent number 4. She goes, I just don't have the temperament anymore. So will I follow up with her? Absolutely. Because she said, I've got 3 offers coming Tuesday. And I said, from whom? And she said, these investors. And so I warned her about fake offers or assignment offers. And she goes, oh, I'm aware of that. And I said, okay, all right, I'll call you Thursday. Is that all right? And so, you don't get intimidated by someone who's talked to several different agents or had several different agents. She goes, I had a Keller Williams agent. I said, we're not all created equal. All right. Questions about what you learned today, ahas or questions. And then I'll open the floor up if there's anything else that you want to discuss with the broker today that has nothing to do with this topic. That's what this call is all about.
Deborah, I did have a question. I was talking to a potential listing recently, and their neighbor, friend, coworker, whatever, decided they were going to buy the house from them. So she did not want to list it. However, she did ask what I could do to facilitate that process. Now, I know that it's probably runs the gamut, and I know I can only do so much as a customer and more so if they're a client. Where does that line fall? Are there things I can't do? Or I was very confused how to answer that.
So these are my favorites. So because I prospect, every now and then someone will say, well, I think I have a buyer already. Great, congratulations. Do you need a transaction broker? What's that? Well, that means I'm going to put the contract together for you and help you guys get to the closing table. I can also verify that that person actually has cash or whatever the case may be to get us to the closing table. So I'm going to be doing ministerial acts. What's that? I explained that. See, we are conditioned to just be a buyer's agent or a listing agent, but I've done many transactions and I have a fee for that. So I just got through teaching agent financials in our market center last Thursday. And the very first thing we did was everyone had to calculate what they're worth an hour. Because when I went around the room at our team meeting prior to that class and asked that question, I got all kind of things like, oh, I'm $100 an hour. I'm $200. I'm priceless. Look, we're in a market now where you better know your numbers, not just how many listings you need and how many buyers you need, but what are you worth an hour? Really, not something you made up. So when you talk to someone like this scenario, you know you might have 12 hours, I'm just making this up, 12 hours worth of work to get someone who already has the buyer. You don't have to show it, you don't have to market it. You are just bringing your expertise as a consultant to get them to the closing table. That might be worth $2,500. That might be worth $5,000. I don't know. What is your number? You have an assistant. Okay, so I got to calculate assistant, my time, you know, whatever the case may be, because sometimes a transaction like that seems simple and then something shows up on the title. Yeah. You've got to get involved. That might be an extra 5 hours. Now you're into this thing for 17 hours. So you got to figure out, like I have a flat fee. When I talk to someone about a transaction broker, I know what that fee is when they ask me. That fee is going to be XYZ. Great. Are you okay with that? Yes. All right. I'm going to send you over the documents as an unlisted property that you're going to pay me a flat fee. Because remember, we have a dollar amount, we have a percentage. Everything is not a percentage. Sometimes it's a flat dollar amount. So I know what that is for me. I know what my percentage is when I want to charge. And I also know what my flat fee is when I charge. And mine is sliding depending on the price point. I don't make it up as I go along because I don't want anyone to say, oh, you only charge XYZ to them, but you're charging me this. I feel like that could get me in trouble. So I'm consistent with that. And as things increase, like eggs and bread, I increase also with the times because of the time that I'm putting into it. So to answer your question, you would need to go back to them and say, well, I can help you get to the closing table. I'm not going to be doing any CMAs and all that kind of stuff. I'm helping you get this person that you already captured, and I can do all the paperwork, the legal paperwork, to get you to the closing attorney. In case anything comes up, I can help with that. And for that, my fee would be this. And it could still be a percentage, but sure, I just do a flat fee.
And so, but I say that in that circumstance, I'm not allowed, I'm going to say it, to like give my opinion on things, or where does that, is that kind of one of those fine lines?
Well, if you keep it as a ministerial act, meaning I'm putting paperwork together, yes, as a realtor, you can answer certain questions. You know, they might say, hey, they want to counter XYZ. What do you think? It's okay to answer that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's okay to answer that. But if they start getting into, the buyer says, well, I heard there was a train station coming in, when you don't get involved with that, that's their due diligence, buyer beware.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
But as far as putting that contract together, that's what we're trained to do. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Cool. Thank you.
That's a good question. I think it's, I might do a broker chat on just all things transaction broker, because I don't think anybody ever does. Has anybody on this call ever?
I do.
I would love that.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways to do it. I would suggest that you know how much you are an hour or what you want as your consultation fee. I mean, you don't walk into a therapist's office or a doctor's office and they're like, well, let me see what I'm going to charge today. They know exactly what they're charging you, and they want it when you walk out.
I charge 1%.
Okay. So that's your fee. That's your business fee for your particular company. Yeah.
Okay, Deborah, can I ask you I mean, you're going to bitch slap me through the screen for this.
Not while we're being recorded.
Yeah. Okay. So I am confused about language on so I signed 2 buyers this weekend, and I'm like, I know I'm overthinking these things, but so it's the compensation. You've got B, C, and D, right? So compensation and buyer's broker, that's the old school way. Yes. 3%, right?
Yes.
All right. D, optional. What what is optional? And then D, that's, wait, B, C, D, C. So if buyer approves such compensation being paid by seller and seller's broker, the buyer's broker, the maximum amount the buyer's broker may receive. So is that just a repeat of B and C?
So let's talk about the optional. You asked that first, and then we'll go backwards. Let me give you an example of what an option could look like. Let's say you're going to, I'm going to use Builders. Builder is giving a $10,000 bonus. That would be written in your optional section.
So
So above and beyond what is already agreed, there's some other options that could happen.
okay. And then D, if in the negotiation I can only get 2.5%, then in D, can I put negotiable?
No, you can't ever, everything has to be very clear. You can't put anywhere between 3 and 5%. You can't do that. It has to be specific. So nowhere in any of our compensation can it be open-ended. It's basically what we're being taught.
So the D, when it says possible reduction in buyer's compensation.
Okay, so let's say your buyer agrees to pay you 3. Seller says, I'm only going to pay you 2.5. Mm-hmm. Then you would go back to the buyer and say, my fee is 3%. Seller's only going to pay me 2.5. So now you are going to be reduced to the 0.5%.
No. So why can't you say that's negotiable at the time that we make the offer?
Oh, of course you can say that.
That's
of course you can. Yeah, okay. I guess I've misunderstood you. So when you're sitting down having your consultation, you can always say to the buyer, if I am not offered any compensation, this is what you're obligating yourself to. Great, I agree to it, I sign it. However, I would also say in the consultation, however, if the seller is offering compensation, then I'm going to come back to you and there's probably going to be a reduction, or you don't pay anything because I'm getting it from the seller.
So on D, 4D, it says reduce compensation, not reduce compensation, special exemptions to compensation.
Right. So you could either say, I am going to reduce you totally, or I'm not going to reduce you. You're going to pay me 3 and the seller's going to pay me 3, as long as everyone agrees.
Why can't I check special exemptions and put negotiable? Because I could negotiate at the time of the offer. That's what I think that should be fine logically. So special exemption, so they've agreed to 3, and my fee is 3. But when we finally find the house of their dreams and they're only paying 2.5, we can negotiate that 3, right?
You negotiate the 3 with a special stip if the buyer says, hey, will you ask the seller to pay you your full 3?
Yes, of course, ask it in the special stips.
And that's what the special stip is for. We're not supposed to have any open-ended anything.
Oh, well.
We're not supposed to have any open-ended anything, because you're right, anything can be negotiated. It's always been that way.
I know.
But the thing is, if what'll happen is you are having consultations with the buyer to say, it's the goal that the seller's offering some compensation.
Right.
But if they are not, you're going to be obligated to this 3%. Are you okay with that? Yes, I am, Sarah. Sign here. Then you find the house, seller says 2.5. You go back to the buyer and say, here are your options. We can reduce it by down to 0.5%. So 0.5% will be on the settlement statement that you're paying, and the 2.5 will be paid by the seller. Or we have a special stip that we can go back and negotiate that with the seller, or I'm only going to get 2.5. Because you cannot coerce that buyer to say, hey, go ask them for that. The buyer is supposed to tell you that. but you can say, here are the options of what we can do. That is why we have the pre-agreement, so that we know what we're getting before we even show that property. And I know I haven't run into it yet, but I know you guys are probably having difficulty getting that sometimes.
Okay. I mean, I just think I don't know.
So Sarah, call me and I'll go over it with you. Okay.
Right. Sorry to bother. I mean,
no, you're fine. I just don't want to go over too long
I know. Sorry.
on this, and I can go over it with you one-on-one. All right.
Deborah, I got a question, Deborah, if you don't mind, real quick.
Yeah.
I promise. I'm interested in the I guess the being a broker, transaction broker. I've run into a few situations where I could have taken advantage of that opportunity, I think, and I probably just drop the ball. What paperwork is it that I am to execute if I'm only going to be a transaction broker? What do I need to do? Am I just representing each side as a customer? Am I doing an authorization for
you
the
can
seller?
use the non-exclusive. You can use the customer agreement. That's what. See, we don't talk about the non-exclusive very often. I don't think I could count on one hand how many times I've ever used it in 28 years. I usually have a client or I have a customer. Very seldom, but when I do transaction brokerage, I'll either use the authorization I use the authorization to show the unlisted property, and then I'll either use the customer agreement or the non-exclusive.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm on the right page.
Yeah, I think you guys are missing opportunities for transaction broker, because you just say, well, they'll say to you, well, I have an attorney who'll do all of that. Well, are they going to help you negotiate? Are they going to help you if there's a problem, so on and so forth? They're just closing the transaction. I'm going to make sure I verify everything. The attorney's not going to verify whether this person actually can close and so on and so forth. They're just going to do the closing and look over your contract, and that's it. So basically, if you have those kind of opportunities and people are pushing back and say, well, I think I have a buyer, great. I'm going to call you on Tuesday, and what I can do is help you get to the closing table as a transaction broker. Are you familiar with that? No, I didn't know that exists, because all we talk about is clients and customers.
And just to add, the closing attorneys will ask them as well to purchase the guard documents, so this will cost them a lot. So it's better.
That is true. I forgot about that. I have had that happen before. So what she's saying is sometimes the attorney will say, I want you to use GAR forms, and then they've got to purchase that. And I'm not sure how they do, because I thought it was only for us, but I'm sure. I'm sure they probably don't get the GAR form. They probably get the RE forms or something like that.
I've got a quick question.
Go right ahead.
So in the event that you say you're on the list, you're the listing agent, and you have an agreed upon compensation. And it's my situation. So I have an agreement that would normally be shared with the buyer's agent, but the buyer is the agent and they are forfeiting their compensation that they would get, that the seller's offering. Do I need to go back and do an amendment to my regular agreement, or is the compensation document that we now include enough to show if it's reduced, right? So you talked about, hey, if there is no agent on the other side, then the compensation to me as your listing agent may be reduced. Normally in my mind, I would think, hey, okay, well, if we're going to reduce it, I need to go back and do an amendment to our agreement. But I was wondering, do I still need to do that, or just tagging the lower number on the compensation form that we now use, would that be enough?
Well, here's the thing. You have an agreement with your seller to pay X. And I don't know if you have anything special in your listing agreement saying that in the event there's no other agent involved, which is the example you're showing, even though there is an agent, they've just decided to waive their compensation, then we will reduce the compensation to this. Okay. So a lot of times you'll hear an agent say, hey, it's 6%, but if I bring the buyer, it's 5%. So if you've written that in your listing agreement, that's fine. If you did not write that in your listing agreement, you need to amend your listing agreement.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
Everybody understand what I meant by that? So it's always a good practice that anytime I do a listing agreement, I usually say to the seller, in the event I am the only one, then I will give you a reduction of whatever it is. And I've written that in the special steps. I've always done that. Then I don't have to go and do all this extra work. Okay. Or here's another good example. Seller says, I'm going to list my house with you and I'm going to buy another house. And then all of a sudden they're going to lease instead of buy. So I write, okay, if I'm the only one, I'll reduce it to this. But, and especially if you're going to buy another house from me, but if you don't buy another house consecutively, it goes back to the original price. You got to cover yourself because they can be really tricky. It only has to happen to you once and you're going, you got me once, you won't get me twice. You guys had good questions. Was this a good going over MOFIRS? We kind of got away from it, but do you think you've got some new tools under your belt for MOFIRS and for transaction broker?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, that was great.
Good. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end before they kick us off. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. I hope you got all your questions answered. And it's been a long time since I've been on. I think I had the whole month for my birthday in August and mega camp and on and on and on. So I think we're back on track. The next couple of months, start looking for the three of us to start talking to you about any contract changes, because it's time for that to drop pretty soon here for 2025. So usually I find out about that and go to training sometime in October. And then we will be talking a lot about that on Broker Chat. So stay tuned.
Deborah,
Yeah.
quick question.
Sure.
How long will it be before this recording is on YouTube?
I don't know. That's the people do that. I don't know. I think it's pretty quick. I think it's within 24 hours. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just show up and perform, and our Heart of Atlanta assistant takes care of recordings and all that good stuff. So I think it's within 24, no later than 48 hours.
Great talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. Have a great day. Go out and sell. And I'm so happy it's autumn, aren't you? I can't wait to put a sweater on. So have a good day and happy autumn.
Thank you. Thank you for the teaching.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Thanks.